lesson or section 3.2. I can't remember what I call it for you guys. One of the two. We're on the part of the book that says 3.2, complex numbers. So we're going to talk about doing operations with complex numbers. We're going to add, subtract, multiply, but we are not going to divide today. That involves a whole lot of fun that we're going to save for later. Okay? After we talk about conjugates. Have you ever heard of conjugates?
Nope.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Good. Well, that's what it involves when we work with dividing complex numbers, so we're not going to mess with that just yet. Okay, but before we work with complex numbers, I want you to look at this example. You're going to have 4 parts. You're going to 3 parts. After I hit that. Okay. Here's our 2 binomials. We got 4x squared. No, not x squared, just 4x. Okay, so adding, subtracting, multiplying. With adding and subtracting, we're just combining like terms. The subtraction adds an extra step because we have to distribute that negative through. Multiplication, you multiply everything in the first parentheses times everything in the second parentheses, and then you combine your like terms. So the same rules are going to apply when we work with complex numbers. What is a complex number, you say? Well, a complex number is a number that looks like this. A plus BI. A plus BI is a complex number. A is going to be the real part, and BI will be the imaginary part. So on our work, all of our work so far, we've had numbers like this. We've had like a negative 4i or positive or negative 4i. We've had 5 radical 6 over 6i. So we've only had the imaginary part. The real part to those would just be 0. So if we just have an answer of 4i, if we wanted to state it as a complex number, we would say 0 plus 4i. Okay, so here our real part is 0, imaginary part is 4i. Okay, so very similar to the 3 problems you just did. The like terms are the real parts, and then the imaginary parts. You'll want to put them together. So you put the real parts together, you put the imaginary parts together. Boom, we've added, subtracted complex numbers. So let's look at a few examples. And we're going to add, subtract, and multiply each of these pairs. So our first pair is 6 minus 5i and 3 minus 10i. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add. Do I need parentheses when I'm adding? No. So I'm going to have 6 minus 5i plus 3 minus 10i. Similar terms or like terms are going to be your imaginary parts and your real parts. And we want to put real first. So we're going to add 6 plus 3 to give you 9. And a negative 5i minus 10i would be a negative 15i. There we go. We have added those 2 complex numbers. Let's subtract. Parentheses kind of important on the subtracting. We don't need them necessarily on the first parentheses. So we can drop those. 6 minus 5i. We're going to subtract, though, a quantity. So that's going to make a difference there. We're going to have to distribute that negative through to the second parentheses. So we get 6 minus 5i, minus 3, and then minus a negative 10 would be plus 10i. Again, real parts go together. 6 minus 3 is 3. Imaginary parts go together. Negative 5 plus 10 would be 5i. Multiplying is where the fun begins. Okay, so still going to use FOIL. And then we'll combine like terms, but then there'll be something at the end we have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and let's do that. So we're going to take 6 times 3, first times first, so that's 18. And then 6 times a negative 10i would be a negative 60i. Now we're going to take a negative 5i times everything in the second parentheses. So a negative 5i times 3 is a negative 15i. And a negative 5i times a negative 10i. Negative 5 times a negative 10 would be a positive 50. I times I is I squared. Oh yeah, I squared is a negative 1. So we have 18. I can put my i's together, I to the first, the middle term, 60 and 15 to give me a negative 75i. And then I know that I squared is a negative 1. So I make that substitution. And a negative 1 times 50 will be a negative 50. That's a real part. I'm going to put that with the 18. What is a negative 50 plus 18? A negative 32 minus 75i. Whoops. Okay. There we go. Okay, 8 plus 5i. 16 minus 8 is 8. 17i minus 12i is 5i. Good. Subtracting. Gabe, what did you get?
Negative 24 plus 29i.
Okay, so this is like a subtracted. I'm sorry. That's like, so this negative 16 is not negative. Okay, when we subtract a negative,
24, it's not negative.
yeah, 24, and then,
negative sign for like it being subtracting.
Okay. How about now what do you get for your I?
29i.
29i, yep. Because the negative makes both of those positive when we subtract. Okay, good? Any questions on that? Then Adia, walk me through the multiplying part. Okay. So what's 16 times a negative 8 again? Negative 128. Okay, and then 16 times negative 12i? $192? Anybody concur? Negative 192i. And then 17i times negative 8? I, good. And then 17 times a negative 12? Negative 204 I squared. Okay, so we can put together negative 128. We can put our I terms together, I to the first. Boy, what is that? 328 I. And then the 204, remember I squared is a negative 1, so that's just going to make that positive 204. So 204 minus 128 is 76, positive minus 328i. Okay, so on the last one, when you're multiplying, be very cautious. Take your time. Don't, if you need to use your calculator, that's fine. It won't do the I for you, I don't think. I hope not. Okay, so assignment today. Page 96. 7 through 18, all of those, and I want to see work. Holy cow.